Hi, my name's Paul Grogan, and in this video I'm going to be teaching you how to play Vienna, the fifth game in the Stefan Feld City collection from Queen Games. In the 1950s, the streets of Vienna were filled with secret agents whose job it was to gain information from top-ranking whistleblowers on the important topics of the time. During the game, you will play cards to perform various actions, gain bribes, and then use them to place agents in buildings. As soon as you surround a piece of secret information, you claim the tile, gaining points. At the end of each player's turn, one of the tracking tokens moves to the right. And when one of these tokens crosses a threshold, the investigator moves. Once he reaches the space corresponding to the number of players, the game ends after one more round. Each piece of secret information you have is worth points at the end of the game based on the position of the corresponding token. Vienna comes with an introductory game and an advanced game. I'll explain the introductory game first, and I recommend that you start with that one for your first game. I'll cover the advanced game later in the video. A big thank you to Queen Games for sponsoring this video, but I also rely on the financial support of my Patreon campaign to help keep the channel going. So if you are in a position to be able to support me directly, you can do so by becoming one of my supporters at patreon.com/gamingrules. In this video, I'm going to be using the components from the classic version of the game. If you have the deluxe version, some of your components will be different. Place the game board in the middle of the playing area. For the introductory game, use the side showing the statue of Prince Eugene of Savoy. Take the secret information tiles and separate them by type. Set aside one token of each type. Place the rest of the tokens in the bag, mix them up, and then draw them out one by one, placing the tokens at random on the square spaces of the board with the numbers next to them. For your first game, use the flags that are pre-printed on the board, indicating which nationality owns each building. But for added variety in future games, add the flags to the bag, mix them up, and then draw them out one at a time, placing them over the existing flags. Place the storage board next to the main board. Use this side for the introductory game. Take cards numbered 1 to 90 as shown in the bottom right of each card. Shuffle them and then place them face down here as a draw pile. Sort the bribes by type and place them on the matching coloured spaces here. Place the secret information board nearby and place the 5 secret information tracking tokens on the starting spaces of each track. Place the investigator on the starting space on the roof. Place the investigation tile this side up here. Each player takes a desk in their chosen colour and places it in front of them, along with 7 agents, 6 of which are placed here, and the other is placed on the starting space of the victory point track. Each player places their additional scoring marker next to the board. If during the game you go over 100 points, take this marker and place it next to your desk. Each player also takes one bribe of each type, placing them near their desk. Take the 5 secret information tiles that you set aside earlier and place them into the bag. Each player draws one of these tiles at random, placing it next to their desk. Give one of the player aids to each player. Give the city crest to the player who was last in Vienna, or choose a player at random. They are the first player in the game. And with setup complete, you're now ready to play. The game is played over several rounds. Each round is divided into 3 phases. Phase 1 is the card phase, during which each player draws 3 cards and assigns them to actions 1, 2 and 4 of their desk. Phase 2 is the action phase, during which each player in turn order performs their 4 actions. In Phase 3, the player with the city crest passes to the player to the left, and then the next round begins. The end of the game is triggered when the investigator reaches the space corresponding to the number of players. You then play one final round before the game ends, and you proceed to final scoring. The first phase of each round is the card phase. Each player draws 3 cards from the deck into their hand. If the deck ever runs out, shuffle the cards in the discard pile to form a new deck. Each card is divided into 3 sections. The top left section is the bribe that you will gain if you play this card in the second action slot of your desk. The top right section indicates which tracking token moves forward when you resolve your 4th action. The lower section of the card shows a special ability that you will gain if you place the card in your first action slot. I'll explain how these abilities work later in the video. Each player then looks at the cards in their hand and chooses one to place face down here, another here, and the third one here. Phase 1 is carried out simultaneously by all players. Once everybody has placed their cards, proceed to Phase 2. During the action phase, each player takes a turn in order, beginning with the player with the city crest and proceeding in clockwise order. On your turn, you carry out 4 actions in order. Action 1 relates to the card which you placed in the leftmost slot of your desk. You flip the card over and then move it to a drawer below your desk, slotted in so that only the bottom section is visible. The ability on that card is now active during the action shown at the top of the ability. This card, for example, is used in Action 3 whenever you place an agent on a French building. A full list of all of the abilities can be found in the addendum. In the first 3 rounds of the game, you place the card into an empty drawer, but from round 4 onwards, all of your drawers will be full. In this case, you must replace a card in a drawer for a new one. You can choose which one to replace. Also note that you are never allowed to have more than 1 copy of an identical ability in your drawers. For Action 2, you reveal the next card and gain a bribe as shown in the top left of the card. You then place the card on the discard pile on the storage board. Action number 3 does not relate to one of the cards that you played. You may either place one of your agents or take 2 bribes. Don't worry about this third option, that is for the advanced game. I'll explain the taking 2 bribes first, as it's simple. You just gain 2 identical bribes of any type. Your other option is to place one of your agents onto a building on the board. The cost to do this is 2 bribes of the colour matching the building. Placing an agent here, for example, costs 2 tins of tobacco. Pay the cost by returning the bribes from your desk back to the common supply, and then placing your agent on the building. Each player can only have 1 agent per building, but it is possible to have multiple players in the same building. Instead of placing a new agent on the board, you may move an agent from one building to another one, as long as you pay the cost. The main reason for placing agents in buildings is to collect the secret information tiles, and you do this by having an agent at each building connected to the tile. For example, to collect this handgun, you need to have an agent on these 3 buildings. When you collect a tile, remove it from the board and immediately gain the points shown next to the space. This is always the same as the number of agents you needed to take the tile. You then place the tile next to your desk. It is possible that placing an agent allows you to collect more than 1 tile at a time. And also note that you only get the points for taking the tile from the board. If you surround a space that has no tile, you do not gain any points. To resolve your 4th action, flip over your remaining card. Then move the indicated tracking token 1 space to the right. You then place the card on the discard pile. Whenever you move a tracking token, you gain 1 point for each of your secret information tiles that matches the token moved. So later in the game, if you move the microfilm token 1 space forward and you have 3 microfilms, you gain 3 points. If you are somehow able to move the tracking token more than once on your turn, which can happen through the use of card abilities, you gain the points each time you move it. Whenever a tracking token crosses one of the thresholds, move the investigator on the roof 1 space forward. Then flip over the investigation tile to the other side. This indicates that the investigator cannot move again this round. The tile will be flipped back at the end of the round. To clarify, the investigator can only move once per round maximum. So in a 4-player game, if this was the situation at the start of the round, and during the players' turns each player moves a different token forward, that is 4 thresholds that have been crossed. However, the investigator only moves the first time a threshold is crossed during the round. Also note that once a token reaches the end of the track, it remains there for the rest of the game. However, if you would advance it, you still gain points for each of your matching information tiles, even if the token doesn't actually move. In Phase 3, the player with the city crest passes it to the player to the left. And then, if the investigation tile had been flipped during the round, flip it back to the side without the X. Once the investigator reaches the space on the roof corresponding to the number of players, the end of the game is triggered. It's rare, but it could happen that all tracking tokens reach the last space on their tracks before the investigator reaches his final space. In this case, that also triggers the end of the game. You finish the round that you're currently playing and then play 1 more full round. All players now gain points for their collected information tiles. Each tile is worth between 1 and 6 points depending on the position of the matching tracking token. Here, for example, each slide you have is worth 4 points, each briefcase 3 points, each microfilm 2 points, each flask 4 points, and each handgun 6 points. You also gain 15 points for each set of all 5 different tiles. So here, you gain 15 points. The player with the most points wins the game. In case of a tie, the tied player with the most bribes breaks the tie. Then, the player with the most agents on the board, and if still tied, the player who is later in turn order. Once you are familiar with the introductory game, you can try the advanced game, which introduces new cards, missions, money, and new desk upgrades. Follow the setup for the introductory version of the game with the following changes. Use the other side of the main board, with spaces for the mission tiles in the top right. Each building now has a type, represented by a seal in addition to its colour and flag. This here, for example, is a British building with the nobility seal. Also, use the other side of the storage board with space for the missions at the top. Shuffle all 175 cards together, divide them into 2 roughly equal piles and place them face down here. Sort the mission tiles by type, A, B and S. Shuffle the A tiles and place them face down on the storage board. Do the same with the B tiles. Take the top 2 tiles from each stack. Place the A tiles face up on the mission spaces of the main board here and the B tiles here. Place the next door house board next to the storage board. Sort the coins by denomination and place them here. Take the purchase tiles and the payday tiles and place them on the spaces of the secret information board based on the number of players in the game. For a 2-player game, place them like this. Note that on space H there are 2 tiles, a payday tile and a purchase tile. For a 3-player game, place them like this, and for a 4-player game, like this. Each player takes a desk as normal, but only gets 5 agents above their board instead of 6. 3 more agents of each player are placed on the next door house board. Each player also places their 4 desk tiles on the corresponding spaces here, and places a side desk to the right. As well as starting with 1 bribe of each type and 1 random secret information tile, each player starts with 1 shilling. Shuffle the starting mission tiles and give 1 at random to each player. Place your mission tile on a mission space of your desk. You can have a maximum of 3 missions. Whenever you place an agent on a building, you may accept 1 mission that has a flag matching the nationality of the building where you just placed an agent. Or, instead of accepting a new mission, you may resolve any number of missions from your desk, whose flag matches the building where you just placed an agent. To clarify, you either accept 1 new mission, or you may resolve any number of missions that you already have. You cannot both accept and resolve missions on the same turn. To accept a mission, choose a mission from the main board whose nationality matches the building where you just placed an agent. If, for example, you just placed an agent in this American science building, you could accept this mission or this one. Gain 1 shilling if you accept one of the A missions, or 2 shillings if you accept one of the B missions. After taking the mission, refill the space with a new mission from the corresponding stack on the storage board. Place the mission that you took on an empty space of your desk. If you do not have space, you cannot accept a mission. Instead of accepting a new mission, you may resolve any number of missions that match the flag of the building where you just placed an agent. If, for example, you just placed an agent on a British building, you may resolve 1 or both of these missions. To resolve a mission, you must meet all of the requirements as depicted on the tile. Some missions require you to have agents on buildings depicting the seals shown. To resolve this mission, for example, you need to have at least 2 agents on administration buildings and at least 1 agent on a science building. Other missions require you to have the depicted bribes. You don't need to spend the bribes, only to have them. Other missions require you to have the information tiles depicted, and again, you just need to have these tiles, you don't need to spend them. The last type of mission requires you to have an agent in the exact building indicated on the tile. When you resolve a mission, gain the reward shown in the top right, which could be points, money, or a combination of both. Then, remove the mission from your desk and place it back in the box. In the advanced game, the investigator starts here and moves to the right as normal, a maximum of 1 space per round. On a round when the investigator moves onto a space with a purchase tile, move it to the investigation tile. This indicates that after all players have taken their turns, but before phase 3, there is an additional purchase phase. In the purchase phase, each player in turn order may make 1 purchase from the following options. You can buy an additional agent at the cost of 1 shilling. Place it above your desk. It can be used just like any other agent. or you can buy a side table for 3 shillings. Take yours from the pile and place it to the right of your desk. You now have 4 spaces for mission tiles and 4 drawers for placing cards. Or you can buy any one of your 4 desk upgrades. Each of them costs 2 shillings. When you buy one, place it on your desk. The telephone allows you to draw 4 cards in phase 1 of each round. Choose and assign 3 of them as normal and place the 4th one on the discard pile. The road map allows you to use your bribes as if they were money. 1 bribe can be used as 1 shilling. If you have your seal, you gain 3 points each time you resolve a mission, even if the mission didn't gain you any points. Once you own a cash box, you may place any money you gain directly into your cash box, but only at the time you gain the money. You place the money under the cash box so that the other players cannot see it. In addition to this, each time you resolve a mission, you gain 1 extra shilling which must be placed directly into the cash box. Money in the cash box is locked inside and cannot be spent during the game. At the end of the game, each shilling in there is worth 2 points to a maximum of 24 points. There is another type of tile on the investigator track, representing Payday. The second of these is on the same space as the final purchase tile. When the investigator moves onto the space with the first Payday tile, move the tile to the investigation tile just like you did with the purchase tile. After all players have taken their turn, there is a Payday phase. When the investigator moves onto the last space, move the purchase tile to here and resolve that as normal in the current round. Also, move the Payday tile to here. You won't resolve that this round, but at the end of the final round of the game instead. During the Payday phase, each player must pay 1 shilling for each of their agents on the game board. For each agent that you cannot afford, you must remove them from the board and place them back above your desk. But note that you must pay for your agents if you have enough money to do so. Also, if you have the road map allowing you to use bribes as money, you may use it, but it is optional. For example, if you have 5 agents on the board, 3 shillings and a road map, you must pay the 3 shillings, but for each of the other 2 agents, you can choose to pay a bribe as if it was money, or remove the agent from the board. The end of the game in the advanced version is triggered in the same way as the introductory game, as soon as the investigator reaches the space corresponding to the number of players. As mentioned earlier, that space has 2 tiles. You resolve the purchase phase in the round that the end of the game was triggered, and the Payday phase at the end of the final round. But just before resolving final Payday, each player must remove 1 agent from the board for each mission that they still have on their desk. Then, after the final Payday, perform final scoring. Each secret information tile is worth 1 to 6 points, just like in the introductory game. But you do not get the points for each collected set. That is only in the introductory game. You also gain points based on how many desk tiles you have. 1 point for 1 tile, 3 points for 2 tiles, 6 points for 3 tiles, and 10 points for all 4 tiles. Each shilling in your cash box is worth 2 points at the end of the game, to a maximum of 24 points. Then, you rank the players based on the number of agents they have on the board and allocate points based on their ranking and the number of players in the game. In case of a tie, break ties in favour of the player with the most money, then if still tied, the one with the most bribes, and if still tied, add the points for the tied positions and divide equally. For example, in a 3-player game, if red has the most agents on the board, they gain 12 points. If blue and yellow tie for the most agents and also have the same money and the same number of bribes, they each gain 3 points. And the player with the most points wins. In case of a tie, break ties in favour of the player with the most money, then if still tied, the one with the most bribes, and if still tied, the player who is later in turn order is declared the winner. At the back of the rulebook are 2 mini expansions which you can use to provide some additional variety to the game. I hope you found this video useful in learning how to play Vienna. Please give the video a like, leave me a comment and subscribe to the channel. And as mentioned earlier, I do rely on the support of my Patreon to keep the channel going. So if you are in a position to be able to do so, please visit patreon.com/gamingrules for exclusive access to the Gaming Rules community and some additional bonus content. Until next time, take care and thanks for watching.